In today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast, we continue our playoff player review. This time we're talking about Ausar Thompson, what he did well, what he didn't do well, and what he has to improve upon moving forward. We'll break it all down. Today's episode, Locked On Pistons podcast. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I am your host, Ku Khahil. You can find me over on Twitter at Ku Khahil. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. I've been hosting the Locked On Pistons podcast since 2021. Been covering your Detroit Pistons for the last 4 years. I want to tell you guys that today's episode is also brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. You know where to find us, whatever podcast platform. Leave us a 5-star review over on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Also, check out the description down below for the Substack where we just dropped our Cade Cunningham playoff review. We'll be dropping our Ausar Thompson playoff review in the next day or so. So stay tuned for that to go along with this podcast on Ausar Thompson's playoffs. Also, the Playback Room, subscribe over there if you want to watch some live games with us. We'll have some stuff going on throughout the off season. Don't know exactly what we'll do yet, but we'll have some content over there for you guys as well. But let's go ahead and get into today's episode. We're going to do it just like we did Cade's episode. If you haven't listened to Cade's playoff review, we start with the positives, then we move into the negatives, and then we have our final thoughts on what we saw from this player in the playoffs and thoughts on them moving forward. So, and again, this is not to be confused with the season review. We'll have season reviews later on. This is playoff review, which means there only will be like probably 7 guys that actually were in the rotation that we'll do these reviews on. So, again, not season review, playoff review. Let's go ahead and get into it. So we'll start off with telling you guys his basic box scored numbers in the playoffs. In his first ever playoffs at 22 years old, Ausar Thompson, 11.5 points per game, 5.2 rebounds, 1.0 assists, 1.2 steals, 0.8 blocks. He shot 57% from the field, 0% from the three-point line, only took 0.3. I think that's 1 3 he took in the whole series. He shot 60% on all twos, and he shot 58% from the free throw line. So what we're going to start with the positives, like I mentioned. The first thing that I think has to be the immediate takeaway from Ausar Thompson's playoff performance is that his defense translates to the playoffs. His defense is just as impactful, maybe even more impactful, to be honest. Maybe even more impactful in the playoffs than he is in the regular season. I have some numbers to back this up. We talked about some of these numbers during the actual series itself, but we're going to go through it again. The first number I want to bring up is what Jalen Brunson shot, what he performed like when Ausar Thompson was on the floor. And we're going to go game by game here. In game 1, Jalen Brunson with Ausar Thompson on the floor. 15 points on 6 of 14 shooting, 50 true shooting percentage. Inefficient 15 points. Game 2, 12 points, 3 of 9 shooting, 4 turnovers, 51 true shooting percentage. Inefficient, turned the ball over. Game 3, 10 points, 2 of 8 shooting, 47% true shooting percentage. Inefficient 10 points. Game 4, 11 points, 4 of 10 shooting from the field, 50.6 true shooting percentage. Again, another inefficient 11 points. Game 5, when Ausar Thompson is on the floor with Jalen Brunson, 3 of 14 from the floor. 3 of 14 from the floor, 11 points, 32.2 true shooting percentage. Just complete lockup. And then even in the Game 6, even in the closeout game of Game 6, where Jalen Brunson, yes, on the final possession, he got the better of Ausar Thompson, but for the majority, for the totality of that game, 16 points on 7 of 18 shooting, 44.4 true shooting percentage. It is clear as day that when Ausar Thompson was on the floor, Jalen Brunson, not just Brunson, but Jalen Brunson and the entire New York Knicks offense struggled to score, struggled to get anything really going, anything clean going with Ausar Thompson on the floor. His defense was absurdly impactful on the Detroit Pistons. It's one of the reasons why this entire series was really just a defensive battle, because of what Ausar Thompson was able to do on Jalen Brunson, and versus obviously what OG was able to do on Cade. two incredible defenders guarding two incredible offensive players, and I thought Ausar Thompson did a fantastic job on Jalen Brunson. Obviously, Jalen Brunson, he did get the final laugh. He got the final shot off, game winner. You're going to get beat. When you are guarding that many great players consistently all that time, you will lose once in a while, just like you will win once in a while. You just want to win more than you lose. And I'd say for the majority of this series, Ausar Thompson won versus Jalen Brunson. His defense was immediately seen as impactful. You can see this by the on-off numbers as well after the series. And we'll go deeper into this in a minute, but the Pistons were 11.3 points better with Ausar Thompson on the floor than with him off. 11.3 points better. This was the best of any player on the team. I'm not counting Isaiah Stewart because he only played 19 minutes in game one. That was it. Isaiah Stewart, if you want to count those 19 minutes, he was the highest, but it's a very small sample size. I only played one game. He had the highest on-off of any player on the Detroit Pistons, Ausar Thompson, that is. The defense was 6.2 points better with him on the floor. When he was on the floor, the defense was the defensive rating, 103.8. When he's off the floor, it was 110.0. And then this is the number I really wanted to get into. Offensive rating, 110.2 when he was on the floor, 105.0 when he was off. The offense was 5.2 points better with Ausar Thompson on the floor versus with him off. How is that happening? This is another one of those positives because Ausar Thompson will get to his negatives, some things he has to improve on, some things we saw, some of his flaws that were exposed a little bit against the Knicks. But despite those flaws that we'll get into, he is a positive impact on your offense. Why is that? Number one reason is the Pistons' best offense. I tried explaining this games 1 through 4. People didn't want to listen, but then people came around once Ausar actually put up points in game 5 and game 6. But whether he's scoring himself, it doesn't matter. The reason why the offense is better with him on the floor, despite his flaws offensively, is because this Pistons roster was built to run in transition and score off of their stops. And they don't get stops without him on the floor. So therefore, they're forced to play within the half-court setting where this roster is not built to score within the half-court, and we saw how much they struggled in this series to score in the half-court. The offense was so much better with Ausar on the floor because he was enabling them to get stops, which then allowed them to push in transition, early in transition, fast breaks, easy layups, open threes created, whatever. Even if it's not Ausar scoring, that's not the point. He's helping them generate their best offense, which is early, fast break transition offense. That's one of the reasons why the offense was so much better with him on the floor. The other reason why, and you saw this a little bit with Game 5 and Game 6, they got better with it. He got better with this. The coaching staff, I thought, got better with this. But if the opposing team's going to put 2 on ball against Cade Cunningham, the Pistons have 2 guys, in Jalen Brunson and Ausar Thompson, who should be able to obliterate that 4-on-3 on the weak side and be able to create open threes and layups. And we talked about this a lot in the film breakdowns we did. The Pistons did a much better job of being able to do that in Games 5 and Game 6, space the floor a lot better. But also, Ausar Thompson was just better himself at making reads and showcased that his ability to read the floor, make the right pass, and also finish at the basket on these alley-oops cutting down the baseline is incredibly impactful for your offense, especially when teams are putting 2 on ball at the top of the key on Cade Cunningham. So those are my biggest takeaways from Ausar Thompson. His positive is that his impact is felt. He has flaws, and we are going to get to some of his flaws coming up in the next segment. But the main takeaway I took from Ausar Thompson's first playoff series is that he is the second most impactful player on this basketball team. And no matter his flaws, he must play. He has to play because his strengths so very much overwhelm his flaws and impact this team in such a positive way that you have to live with the occasional turnover. You have to live with the occasional offensive possession that maybe they don't get the spacing correctly. You have to live with the offensive possession where maybe he blows a layup. You have to deal with those because of what he brings to your overall team on the floor so greatly overwhelms that. And his defense on Jalen Brunson, I thought it was great to see that his defense did translate to the playoffs impact-wise. And I'm really glad to see that as the series started to progress, especially obviously Game 5 and Game 6, the Pistons and Ausar, because it's hard to know, it's hard to pinpoint exactly who you should give credit and not give credit to for this. The spacing on the floor, getting the spacing a little bit more exact and precise on where guys should be against this defensive coverage. Whether you want to give credit to JB or Ausar, whoever it was, the team got much better as the series went on at understanding how they need to space out and make the Knicks pay for the way they are guarding Cade. And Ausar Thompson was a main part of that. That's why he played so well scoring-wise in Game 5 and Game 6. And also, I thought you saw his aggression pick up more and more. And it gives me incredible hope and optimism on what he will look like after an actual offseason where he can actually train and develop. What he'll look like as a driver, as a finisher, within a half-court offense now that he can actually have an offseason to develop. Because he has flaws there, but despite that, the Pistons were able to be better with him on the floor. He was able to be incredibly impactful, and the team was just much better with him on the floor versus off. His defense was tremendous, absolutely tremendous. He makes the defense work himself. I don't know how he's that good at it already, but he just makes the defense work himself. And offensively, you saw what he brings to the table, especially in transition. But like I said, especially Game 5 and Game 6 when they started to better understand how to attack the weak side, put him in the dunker spot on the weak side, have him cutting down the lane, and just finish everything at the basket if that's how the Knicks wanted to play defense. And that's what the Pistons did. And they had a chance to win the series because they started to figure it out a little bit. So those are my biggest takeaways from Ausar Thompson's first playoff series. Let me know, comment section down below, if there are any other positives from Ausar Thompson's playoff series that I didn't mention that maybe you guys noticed, you guys wanted to let me know. Again, comment section down below or over on Twitter at Ku Khahil. When we come up, or come back, not come up. We are already on the come up. When we come back, we will talk about Ausar Thompson's negatives and his flaws and where he must improve and what was highlighted in those negatives in this playoff series. We'll talk about that coming up. NBA fans, you know what time it is. Playoff season means big performances and even bigger rewards. DoorDash is bringing the heat with a slam dunk deal for Dash Pass members during the 2025 NBA playoffs. It's called They Swoosh, You Score. Anytime a player drops 50 or more points in a playoff game, which seems like it's going to be pretty rare with how much physicality and defense is going on in these playoffs, Dash Pass members score a free 3-piece crispy tenders combo from Wingstop the very next day. Just place an order of $20 or more and use the code WINGSTOP50 at checkout, and that combo is yours. Crispy, delicious, and totally free. Offer valid noon to midnight the day after the game. Terms apply. Ever looked at your delivery fees and thought, there's got to be a better way? With Dash Pass, you get $0 delivery fees and exclusive perks like this one. How much would you save over a season if you had Dash Pass? Probably a ton. So here's the play. Sign up for Dash Pass to unlock this and more exclusive deals all season long. When any player scores 50 plus in a playoff game, Dash Pass members can grab a free 3-piece crispy tenders combo from Wingstop the next day with a $20 plus order and code WINGSTOP50. That's Dash Pass. Use your door to more savings, more flavor, and more ways to win. Terms apply with DoorDash. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. You guys know it. Check out the description down below for the Substack to get written player reviews to go along with your player review podcast that we have coming up. Also, subscribe over at the Playback, be a part of the community, all that good stuff. All right, so let's go ahead and get into Ausar Thompson's negatives, some of the flaws that were brought up in this playoff series that were exposed and that he will have to improve upon moving forward to get even better as a basketball player, but to avoid putting his coaching staff in a position where they feel like they might be better with him off the floor. As much as I disagreed with them taking him off the floor, and as much as I disagreed with the idea that it made sense to do it, the trade-off for offense for defense worked out, and I think the numbers back me up that it wasn't worth it. Despite that, I can sit here and still say I understand why the coaching staff felt like they were put into a position at times where maybe it was a better trade-off to do it. I don't believe it was. I think that was a wrong decision, but I understand why they were put in the position, and Ausar has to improve in these areas so he's not putting his coaching staff and his teammates in this position where they're trying to figure out should they even have him on the floor still. So let's start with number one flaw. In these playoffs, I think you saw that if he is going to be in this limited role usage-wise, which I expect his usage to go higher, but this is even more important if his usage does go higher, he cannot turn the ball over as much as he was through the first 4 games of this series. First 4 games of the series, he had 3 turnovers one game, 2 turnovers another in 20 minutes, 2 turnovers in 17 minutes, 4 turnovers in 21 minutes. That's way, way, way too many turnovers for a guy who didn't have the ball in his hands as a creator too often. He had the ball in his hands when, he was cutting to the basket, on lobs, stuff like that. But not too often did you see him with the ball in his hands attacking or creating within the half court to where you should be living with those type of turnovers. Those turnovers have to be cut down. He did a much better job. He had 0 in the final 2 games, his 2 best games of the series. So he did a better job of it. But that is, and not just for him, but that's really like the rule for a lot of low usage players. You can't have your low usage players contributing turnovers because your high usage players are going to turn the ball over, especially a guy like Cade. So to keep your turnovers down, the low usage players have to be smart with the ball and not just flipping it around. And Ausar was doing that to start the game. I think he needs to improve his handle, obviously, to help with that. But I also thought that he was rushed at times at the beginning of the series. I thought some of the tempo, some of the defense was getting to him. Maybe you could say the lights. I don't think it was the lights, but some people may say that. I think at times the defense had him rushed, and he was rushing passes that he didn't normally rush, and his handle got exposed at times in transition where he was giving the ball back a little too much, especially at the beginning of this series. The next flaw for Ausar Thompson that he has to improve upon. He has to stay out of foul trouble. He has to learn how to defend without getting in foul trouble. This series had 6 games in it. He had 5 or more fouls in 3 of them. He fouled out of 1 of them. The other game, he had 4. There was only 2 games where he had less than 4 fouls in the series. Those 2 games was Game 4, where it didn't matter. They didn't play him a lot anyways. And then Game 6, where he still didn't play as nearly as much as I would like, but he wasn't in foul trouble. Those other games, you could make the argument that the reason why he wasn't on the floor was because he was getting in foul trouble, which was then putting his teammate at a disadvantage, and he was playing too physical with Brunson. And maybe you could make the argument that it took him a little too long into the series to realize how to defend Jalen Brunson without fouling and taking himself out the game. You can go back and forth on that. He has to become a better or smarter defender with his fouls in a playoff setting, because I think that really hurt the Pistons as well. So that's defensively. And the other thing offensively, which is obviously, I think, where a lot of people are going to go with this. Because he's not a shooter. Again, it's hard to diagnose who you want to put this most on, but I'm going to put it on Ausar because this is who we're reviewing here. If you are not going to be a shooter and have that gravity as a shooter, you have to be spacing the floor perfectly each possession in the half court to where you're making up for that. Because it's hard to space the floor, and it's hard to you have to be perfect at where you're putting players within the half court to take advantage of spacing with 2 shooters on the floor. Now, like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, Game 5 and 6, they did a much better job of this. They were putting him on the weak side within the baseline. He was timing his cuts a lot better versus this trapping defense the Pistons were going against, not the Knicks. The Pistons were going against. And they were doing a much better job of just spacing the floor and putting him in the right spots to where it wasn't as cluttered. I thought through games 1 through 4, they were really struggling. Ausar and the team, whichever one you want to put it on, they were struggling to find out the right timing on cuts, where he should be put at the right times, when he should be in this area, when should he not be, when he should be on the weak side, when he should be on the strong side. All that stuff, if you are playing 2 non-shooters, you have to be on point. You have to be crisp with that, or it just completely sabotages your half-court offense, and it makes it extremely hard on your primary initiator, which is Cade Cunningham. And I thought the Pistons and Ausar really struggled with that at times within the half-court through games 1 through 4 at where he should be and the timing on his cuts. I thought that is obviously an area that he got much better at in the final 2 games, but he still needs to much improve the IQ in that area and understanding where he needs to be at what time. The other thing that I feel like was a little frustrating to see, I'd say, for the first 2-ish, maybe 3-ish games, was his finishing just wasn't consistent enough. There were times where he got a ball underneath the basket on a cut, especially I feel like in Game 2, where he either held the ball too long and didn't go up with it right away, or he allowed a smaller guy on the weak side to affect his finish and him not be able to finish the ball. Like there's one play that comes to mind where they get into a 4-and-3 situation during short roll. He dumps it off to Ausar underneath the basket. It should be an easy dunk, but he lets a recovering Mikal Bridges block him at the rim. First of all, Ausar is way too athletic to really let anyone outside of like a 7-footer block him at the rim. That's one. Two, he's too smart of a player and too smart of a finisher to allow any kind of recovery like that to where he knows not to maybe take another dribble and finish on the other side, or especially when he held the ball a little too long and didn't go right up with it and was forced into a tougher shot. He's way too smart, way too athletic of a finisher for those things to impact him, and I thought it was through the first few games. Again, the final 2 games, it wasn't as much, but the first few games, you saw him just not being as aggressive as a finisher and not being as on point as a finisher in the first few games, or allowing guys that shouldn't affect him as a finisher affect him, which I thought he has to get better at. He was a little inconsistent throughout the year as a finisher. He had some high highs. Then he would go through a stretch like that mid-March stretch when he was struggling to finish at the rim. He has to become a much better finisher around the rim. And I really like the physicality he came with in the last 2 games. I mean, he had 22 free throws in the final 2 games, and it wasn't like those were from Ausar. This was from him attacking the basket and being extremely physical and aggressive and forcing fouls because of how athletic he is. That needs to be how he attacks the rim every time. That needs to be how he's trying to finish at the rim every time. So I thought that was another flaw that he has to improve upon. And then the last thing I'll say is his handle, I thought, got better this year, but it's still not good enough, and it has to get much better. I've said this now for 2 years, that you draft Ausar Thompson at 5 because you believe in the playmaking and the on-ball creation that you saw at OTE. Maybe not immediately, but you believe that will be in his future. That's the only reason why I believe you draft him 5 instead of like 9 or 10. Because then he's not just a defensive guy. He's a guy you can trust to be secondary creator. His handle is not good enough, or at least not good enough for the coaching staff to trust that upon him consistently. We saw it at times throughout the season, but we're not on a season review. We're on a playoff review. And you didn't really see it at all, really, in this playoff series. So he's too good of a passer. He's too good of a playmaker. He's too good of a processor, or a reader of the defense, to where you cannot take advantage of those things. He has to become a better ball handler and improve that area so you can take advantage of his passing, his playmaking, his processing, his ability to get to the basket, be an instant paint touch. You need his ball handling to improve to where the coaching staff can trust him, because that also is another way to counter how defenses want to guard him. If a guy is not a great shooter, but he's on ball, that forces the defense to respect him as a guy on ball that they have to respect as a driver. You see that how they did with Amen in Houston. He was able to be extremely effective the last few games because he has the ball in his hands a lot more than Ausar does, and he's attacking downhill, and that forces the defense. Even if you don't respect him as a three-point shooter, you have to respect him as a ball handler and as a driver. And that's another way to take advantage and create some gravity for a guy who is not respected as a three-point shooter. And Ausar has to get his handle to a point where J.B. Bickerstaff and this coaching staff trust him to do that stuff. And it was not at a point to where you should trust him in this playoff series. And I feel like the Knicks tried to take advantage of that, especially in transition, which you saw him turn the ball over quite a bit early on in this series. So those are areas I believe he has to improve upon to not put the coaching staff in a difficult decision or a position to make a decision, on whether he should be on the floor or not. And so he can continue to become this great player that I think he can become. So that's why those are the negatives I took away from, and his flaws I took away from this playoff series. If there's anything I didn't mention that you guys think of and that you guys have, let me know. Comment section down below or over on Twitter at Ku Khahil. But coming up, I'll give my final overall thoughts on Ausar Thompson in these playoffs and how I feel about him moving forward, not just next season, but in the future as a playoff player coming up. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress with Monarch Money. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. You can take control of your finances today with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year with Monarch Money. And I got to tell you guys about another one of our sponsors, Hungry Root. Everyone in my house always has something going on. I call this the busy season. I don't have a lot of time to go grocery shopping. My wife definitely doesn't have a lot of time to go grocery shopping or to cook healthy meals all the time at home. That's why we use Hungry Root. Hungry Root is like having your own personal shopper and nutritionist wrapped all in one. They take care of grocery shopping and meal planning, offering personalized recommendations based on your taste and health goals. With their high quality and nutritious food, you can stick to your gut-friendly, high-protein diet without spending hours planning. The meals come together in 15 minutes or less, giving you more time for workouts, recording a podcast, editing a podcast, writing articles, spend time with family, hobbies, playing basketball. Whatever you want to do, Hungry Root helps you out better plan those times. Take advantage of this exclusive deal. Get 40% off your first box plus a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA and use code LockedOnNBA. That's hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA, code LockedOnNBA for 40% off and a lifetime free item with Hungry Root. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. So if you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. You guys know, hit the description down below. Playback Room, the Substack, where we will have an Ausar Thompson written analysis on his player or on his playoff review, film breakdown. You guys want to check out the Cade Cunningham one if you haven't already. It was great. I thought I did a great job. I'm not going to lie to you. A lot of people seem to have enjoyed it. So if you haven't already, hit the Substack link. My goodness, in the description down below to check all that stuff out. But all right, I want to give my final thoughts and overall thoughts on Ausar Thompson playoff performance. I come away from these playoffs saying exactly what I said in the first segment. I feel like Ausar Thompson will be the Pistons' second most impactful player in the playoffs moving forward until they get another star. And maybe that star is a star. Maybe the star is someone on the roster, someone else. Maybe it's Jaden Ivey, whatever. But until that happens, I think Ausar Thompson will be the Pistons' second most impactful player because of just how unique and how versatile of a player he is. His defense is 10-year plus of all defensive teams worthy. Like, so good defensively, where I won't be surprised if he finds himself in like top 3, top 4, top 5 defensive player of the year votings multiple years. That's how great of a defender he is. He's that good of a defender, and it translated to the playoffs. How devastating he can be in transition as an off-ball cutter, as an off-ball athlete, just sprinting the floor. It stretches the defense in a different way than, let's say, a three-point shooter would. He's stretching them all the way to the baseline rather than out to the three-point line. And his ability to catch and finish anything at the rim on these lobs is and no one on the floor is able to get up with him. It's really just it's a great offense. It truly is. Any kind of 4-on-3 within the half court or in transition, you have to cover Ausar's lobs, or one, you will give up an easy lob to him and he'll finish. Or two, if you do cover his lob, you have a guy like Jalen Duren in the short roll who can finish at the rim off a live dribble or make the cross-court skip pass to an open three-point shooter if the weak side defender wants to tag down on Ausar, which we saw multiple times when I broke down in the film breakdowns, like he did multiple times with THJ, where THJ's defender would then tag down on Ausar's like, we're done giving up these lobs to Ausar, and then Duren makes the kick to THJ, and now he gets a three. That Ausar's ability as like the Aaron Gordon type role, like Aaron Gordon does for Denver in that dunker spot, cutting along the baseline, his impact in that regard, it stretches the defense in a different way that a shooter doesn't. And it creates its own type of spacing if you execute the positioning on the floor correctly enough, which, again, we just talked about how that has to be something they perfect moving forward. I do believe that there are obvious flaws that defenses are going to try to take advantage of. Like, for example, they tried hiding bigs on Ausar Thompson. They tried hiding Josh Hart on Ausar Thompson, letting him roam. That they did try to do those things. And if you don't, like we mentioned, put players or these players, whether it's the coaches putting them there or the players just supposed to be there and not knowing or not being, aware enough, whichever one it is, with those flaws being there, you have to be able to take advantage and counter it with the way you're supposed to, which is like how they did in Game 5 and Game 6. He has to improve on those flaws the way he can be an even better basketball player and be trusted with the ball in his hands and be that secondary creator that they desperately need. But for a long, long time, this team was begging for a wing with length and athleticism like Ausar Thompson. They finally got it. I feel like my entire time watching the Pistons, they've been asking for a guy like this, and they finally did. And then you waited for the playoffs to see, okay, he was impactful in the regular season. Will he be just as impactful in the playoffs? And I think the numbers and what we saw happen back up the fact that, yes, he was incredibly impactful for the Detroit Pistons. So, Ausar has some things he has to work on. He has to improve on those things. I think he will. Ball handling, decision-making, finishing at the rim on non-dunks, improving as a shooter. Maybe he becomes a shooter. That would be great, too. I've kind of just tossed that to the side because I don't know how realistic it is to expect him to become a shooter. So I haven't put that into these things. Obviously, that's one that you want to see happen, but I like to stay realistic. I don't know how realistic that's going to be. But if he does become a better shooter, obviously that helps as much as well. But nonetheless, no matter what happens, this player that Ausar is right now proved to be impactful for them in the playoffs. And I'll give Troy Weaver this, man. You guys know I'm not a fan of his at all. But when he said before the draft, I'm going to knock this one out the park with the 5th overall pick, I think he did. He if there's one pick that I will give him credit for, it is the Ausar Thompson pick at number 5, because Ausar at 5 was not the popular pick. People remember when I picked Ausar at 5 in this draft, I got laughed at by the Locked On Draft community. I got laughed at. People did not like Ausar at 5. Troy Weaver went against, I would say, the heavy favorites for that pick, and I think he knocked that one out the park. So I'll give him credit on that, and I think Ausar is going to be really good for the Pistons for a long time. So let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Ku Khahil how you feel about Ausar Thompson's first playoff series, the positives, the negatives, and your thoughts on him moving forward. Again, comment section down below or over on Twitter at Ku Khahil. That's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. Free and available on all your podcast platforms. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Stay safe out there. Hit the description down below. And until next time, peace out, everybody.